We call the meeting to order. Would everyone please rise and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have roll call?
Counselor Cartwright.
Here.
Counselor Conley.
Here.
Counselor Lockwood. Here. Counselor Sprague.
Here.
Supervisor Moore.
Here. We'll go into our public hearing. And this one is on the, public hearing number 1 is on the zone change for Robertson. I guess the public is invited to comment, and please give your name and address.
Dennis, could the applicant maybe stand up and discuss what he's requesting?
Well, I represent the applicant.
The applicant isn't here tonight?
No. My name is John Damiano. I'm a land surveyor representing my client who has purchased from the county roughly 5.5 acres of land that runs between 481 and 57 across from the recovery station, the county's recovery station on 481. He would like to, the goal is to change 3.5 acres of the property on the 481 side to industrial from residential zoning.
We believe the purpose of that is to build storage buildings.
Well, the purpose of it, actually, the roots of it is to be able to sell that part of the property in order to build storage buildings, self-storage buildings. Are there any questions? Yes.
How do we know that somebody that buys it off him is not going to do anything else with it?
I need a name.
Oh, I represent Gary Jones.
Well, I guess at this point, you won't, but it will still have to go through the whole town planning and subdivision reviews before anything can be done anyway. It's just basically taking a gravel pit and zoning it from residential to industrial. And it's all industrial on the other side of 481 already.
That's enough.
Well,
Sorry, it's in my backyard.
well, there's remediation plans if this does go through that will probably make you happier than you are now with what you see in your backyard.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee. I love my backyard. The deer go by there, and I got my peace, and I got my quiet, and I just wanted to know basically what he plans on doing.
It's up to the town to enforce what goes in there.
Right.
All we're doing is asking for the zone change.
Well, that's not entirely correct. As a residentially zoned property, there are certain things that are allowed in there.
Right.
As an industrially zoned property, there would be other things allowed in there.
Right.
The town cannot, if something is allowed in a zone, the town can't say, no, you can't do that. The town can possibly put some limitations as to buffering or entrances or exits, but I think the residents need to know that if an area is zoned residential and they got enough property and they want to build a house, we can't tell them, no, you can't build a house. We can maybe say that you got to have so much frontage, but we can't say no.
I
And
misspoke.
that's right. Business is the same way, and industrial is the same way. Certain things are allowed in an industrial zone, and if it's zoned industrial and it's something that's allowed in an industrial zone, we can maybe put some limitations on it as to height or signage or making sure things can't be too terrible. But you need to understand that there are certain things allowed in a various zone, and the town can't just say to somebody, no, you can't do that, if it is allowed. They have certain rights to their property,
Right.
just to clarify.
Yeah, my name is Edward Woodkowski Sr. And I wanna know where he's gonna exit from, 481 or 57?
The plans are to put in
Wait a minute.
the plan is to put in a 60-foot right-of-way from 57 into the property.
That's kinda dangerous, isn't it?
Especially right there on the hill.
You're right on the hill there, that's kinda dangerous.
Well,
I mean, you got school buses, I'm a school bus driver.
Right.
I know, and I got clobbered there. On that curve. Now, you're gonna tell me you're gonna bring in these things in there?
Whatever.
you're right. I am not planning on bringing in anything. There has been a driveway, an access road put in there, which is probably, last fall, probably had a lot of traffic,
Oh, yeah, it did,
you know.
it did.
I
can understand where you're coming from, but the thing is, when you pull them trucks out of there,
You can't see.
you can't see what's coming around that corner.
I've been, once if this zoning change passes tonight, I've been instructed by the planning board that they would want at least a minimum of a topographic survey and a site distance review of that section of the road.
And, okay, I'll buy that.
That's,
I mean,
Without being
because
blind.
see, we don't wanna be blocked. Gary lives on one side of me, and I live on the other side. In between is what you're doing. All we're asking for is just, I don't want nobody killed, I don't want nobody hurt. There's been a lot of accidents on that highway.
I don't think anybody does.
No, you know what I'm saying? You don't want that.
Right. I guess if there's anything to say, is a self-storage facility is usually very low traffic.
A lot of traffic flying up and down my road.
Well, I know, but entering and exiting a driveway, self-storage
Yeah,
facilities
but-
usually aren't.
It says
Non-stop, 24 hours.
35, but they're doing 55.
Oh,
yeah.
They do. Excuse me, Gail Malone again. That's not to say that if he sells it, it's gonna be storage. It could be anything. So why should we zone him when then, if it's zoned, he can do a lot more than putting up storage sheds? Did I say that right?
That's right.
You,
Right. Well, I can't
you can't guarantee that.
no, I can't say what's gonna happen
It's a
20
very
years down
limited
the road.
acreage down there, there would be no big mammoth facility put in there. There's
No,
not room enough for
well,
no
No,
big
but any
facility.
little thing is gonna upset the environment all around there, actually.
With the land size, I can't foresee, with the shape of the property that they want to have rezoned, I can't foresee anything except something like storage facilities going in there.
Was it 3.5 acres?
It's 3.5 acres, but because of industrial zoning, the setbacks will not allow a large building to fit on this.
So they can't go like a gas station or?
Oh, no, it wouldn't.
Okay.
They can't build whole houses.
Isn't there gravel or something back in there?
Yeah.
too?
Pardon me?
Isn't there gravel back in there too?
There's, well, it's kind of up in the air. The DOT likes to call it a borrow pit, but because of the age, and in my experience, it looks more like a gravel stockpile that was placed there during the construction of 481. The difference is, a borrow pit is gravel that's already there that they dug out to build it. Stockpiles are where they put a huge mound and took from it and left the remainders of the mounds.
No.
Do you have any idea why Mr. Robinson isn't here or hasn't come to the board at all?
He was telling me, actually, the property is owned by a company called the Firm Development Corporation. And he told me maybe a member of the corporation is here. I don't know if he is or not. He's the only one I've dealt with as a client.
with the corporation, not just him.
Well, the deed, the Firm Development Corporation is the owners of the property. They are looking to dispose of the property to one person, with one piece being the industrial zoning and the remaining 2 acres on 57 being residential.
Yes.
Jenny Conley. I just have a question about, is there anything about spot zoning? Is there anything in the zoning law about, aren't there places abutting that all residential around it? Or no?
Yes.
Is there anything in town law or zoning law that says
The
anything about?
property immediately to the north is zoned industrial, isn't that correct?
Well, that's up in the air. There is industrial zoning to the north. It is Armstrong property to the north. The way the maps are drawn, it's zoned residential, but why the intent for Armstrong to own residential property? I've had a question into the county on this, and the county said, we have no idea why the town had that zoned residential. It almost looks as though industrial zoning was drawn in to the north of our property, but for some reason it's all Armstrong property, but for some reason that part of the industrial zoning on your map didn't abut this property, the way it was drawn. It was sold to the client. Actually, the county advertised this land when my client bought it as industrial land.
No, he did.
Shouldn't have been.
I was there at the
It
office.
wasn't set out to
Okay.
be.
Well, on the
wasn't set out
tax
to
bill,
be
it didn't say
anyway.
industrial.
To answer the question from Jenny, Don Ryan, the property due west is industrial zone. There would be attached, although it's across 481, it's still industrial there, and it would cross over to that property then. So the property due west is industrial, which is the Armstrong plan.
Now, if they put in the storage buildings, and then there's still gonna be room for 2 residential areas?
Off of 57,
Off
yes,
57.
yes. There's two acres remaining on 57
So there
for
would be
residential.
2 houses would go up in,
2 houses could go in there, yes.
But you're saying in between me and Gary, sorry, there's 2 acres between me and Gary, right? Gary Jones and
Right.
myself.
Mhm.
No,
I take it you're the landowner to the south?
yes, I am. Now, why can't we step in and grab that land? Why?
Well, you could have.
No, I'm saying,
Good try.
which you don't want.
No, I don't.
Leave the front of it, where the trees grow,
Right.
in front of us.
Mhm.
To the left of me, that's north, I'm south.
Yeah, he had it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying something different here. He wants to build a storage shed, right?
Right.
And then you said residential. If it's gonna be residential, then why can't we have a chance?
The western 3.5 acres is what we're looking to zone industrial for the storage buildings.
That's the part that,
The 2 remaining acres on 57 are going to remain residential zoning.
so that means you're gonna come on my property, and you're gonna go on Gary's property. Yeah.
Yes,
I should have brought our.
That would help.
was this being entered into public evidence, or?
It might help explain it a lot easier than.
No, all we're doing is asking for the first option. That's all we're asking for.
The dark red line is all of the land my clients own. And this is Gary Jones's property,
Right.
this is Sandy Patrick's property, and this is Stars and Severs.
Yeah, no, where am I?
Well, if they've got a land contract with you, this is probably yours.
Got an acre there, so there's no
Right.
problem there.
This land in here is exactly 2 acres
Right,
to remain residential zoning.
right.
What's the frontage of it?
The frontage, 308 feet.
There is room for two building lots, yeah?
And basically, the 3.5 acres, well, 3.4 acres to be zoned industrial is all fronting on 481 with a drive coming in this way off of 57. And you're right, it is right next to your driveway.
Yeah, it's right there. A muddy mess, and
Well,
he owns it, yeah.
I believe it probably won't be a muddy mess if they develop this.
Anyone
Would
else?
like to look at it?
That's why everybody's moving, they're moving out of town. You know, people keep building and building and building, and there ain't gonna be nothing left of Volney. What he's gonna have left, what are you gonna do, what are you gonna hand out your kids? Parking lots, buildings? That's my point of view, George. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. What do we got to turn back? Now, you know, I know we're in the 21st century, but what about, you know, grandchildren? What are they gonna have? They're gonna come up and say, oh, you got stuff in the bag, you got this, you got that. What about nature? You know, there's a lot of things. You've been around, George, you know what's going on. Dennis has been around, he knows what's going on. Or do I call you Your Honor?
No.
When does it come up to a vote, George? Dennis?
Tonight.
I'd like to say something if I could.
Yes.
Pete Galicia. I would just like to say, you know, part of what we have to look at too is the tax base it's going to bring to Volney as well, as long with jobs. Because I live in Volney and I pay high taxes where I live. And with the storage going up, I see it only drawing more tax base to the community and also possibly jobs. And that property on 41, it's really not going to, from what I see, isn't really going to affect. It might have a few people, but it's right up there near 41. It's not on the 57 side. And I see it as bringing more of a tax base to Volney and possibly bringing more jobs to the community. That's the only thing I see it going, in a positive way.
How many jobs can it create if you got a storage shed there?
Well, you have a lot of people, there's snow removal, there's upkeep, there's people running this facility. You know, it's not going to generate a lot of jobs, but the jobs that we've lost, it's going to generate a couple jobs, which is better than none at all.
I think we've been railroaded.
We can discuss it when it comes up as a resolution, so this is the public has
Anyone else?
I think, just speaking for the board, what we have to do is, there's a balance type situation here that you gotta consider. One is like what you're saying, you certainly wanna be able to have a residence that can look out your window, like you said, and see the deer walk by. I mean, we do the same thing at our house, so that's important. On the other hand, if a person owns a piece of property, they have certain rights, and you can't, you can't prevent a person a person has a right, if they own property, to do within reason something with the property, so that has to be balanced as well. And then, on our end though, we have to make sure that if we are doing something like a zone change, that we have a real good understanding of what's going on, and balance the consequences and the rights versus the impacts on other people. So It's, you know, this gentleman brought up a good point, you brought up a good point, and the idea is to try to balance things to some extent. I mean, we have people all the time come to us, whether you're on the planning board or code enforcement officer, says, hey, I own this property, I have a right to do something, you know, make money off of my property. I spent money on it, I get to make money off of it. But there's got to be a balance to the extent that it impacts a neighbor. So believe me, this is under consideration, and then, you know, we want to make sure that we have good information before we make any decisions. So I hear you, and that's, I think it's good that you come down, I think it's good that you speak, and you're not being railroaded. You know? At least I hope not. I know we're trying to.
No, you just cleared up a lot of things. If it does get zoned industrial, my concern is what is gonna go with it.
Right. There's, a residential zone is considered to be one of the more restrictive zones in that if you want to open a commercial business of some kind or something like that, it's restricted. You know what I mean? Usually a residence is for residences, okay? A business zone is a little less restrictive. It allows people to put in some commercial properties in within reason, again, you know, that aren't going to have a great deal of impact. And then you get into an industrial zone. An industrial zone restricts people to put houses. You really don't want a person putting a house in an industrial zone if you can help it, because then if an industry ever did want to come in, it can really mess up the person who owns the house. So up front, you try to keep houses out of an industrial zone. But an industrial zone allows development of something that could be more, not the best thing to look at, could have more of an impact on the property. Storage sheds, to be honest with you, tend to be a little bit mellower in that list of things. And from a traffic perspective, and we were considering that, really there isn't a lot of traffic. But then the other question is they can say they're going to do storage sheds, but you don't really know. So it's all a balance, and we're trying to get the best information we can to make a decision.
Well, before you vote on it, then why don't you just find out what you're gonna put in there?
We do know what they told us. This is what they
Yeah, I
told
know
us.
that.
So how can we change that?
All I know is what the plans
I mean,
are.
if anything goes on beyond what they told us, they're going to be in front of the planning board, and there's going to be a lot of restrictions for them.
You can't make a zoning change for a specific business like that. I think New York State would consider that spot zoning. I mean, that would be illegal. But what you can do, if the zoning change does go through, whatever business does go in there, like they're saying, it has to go in front of the planning board. And at that time, the planning board does a site plan review, take a look at the business, see what type of business it is, see if it can adequately fit the space that they're talking about. They look at the egress, the access, and the egress, how they're going to get in there, get out of there. I mean, we can look at making them put the shrubs in, shrubbery, fences, whatever, to make it, you know, aesthetically
I wanted to say
pleasant to
something
the
about
neighborhood.
that. If it doesn't go industrial, whoever owns this property, he can go in and remove gravel.
Yeah.
I mean, they can go in and take truck after truck, and he can go in with a bulldozer and just move dirt around if he wants to. You know, I mean, they can,
There's
this
other
happens in
stuff
another
they
part
can
of
do,
town that,
excuse me.
you know what I mean? So if it does go industrial and the intent is to go in there, we can put size of fence, we can put shrubbery, I think we can even go to the extent of put limitations of hours of service. You know, what time of day they can have access to property, which then, you know, limits the disruption to the local people around there. So once you do it, then you have a little bit of a control over it, you know what I mean? So that's the other part of it, so.
And it would be generating taxable income.
And those hearings are all public, and you can attend them and have your input.
Anyone else? Adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Blackwood?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Henry?
Yes. Public hearing, that meeting is adjourned. Public hearing number 2 is on our zoning ordinance updates. Call that meeting to order and dispense with roll call. Is there any public comment on that? None? Make a motion to adjourn?
Second it.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conley?
Yes.
Counselor Lockwood?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Brown?
Yes. Okay, we'll go into our regular meeting. Call the meeting to order and dispense with roll call. Announcements and communications. The historian forum will be this Sunday, March 14th, starting at 2 p.m. There's a voting course March 27th, 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and March 28th from 12 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. You must be here both days to receive the certificate. Taxes will be accepted at the town hall until March 31st. After that date, they will have to be paid at the county building in Oswego after April 15th. The assessor is doing road review from his vehicle. I believe that's on,
I'll give it for everybody.
Over the snowbanks?
this is a lot of that's to do with there's a lot of damage caused in town during that snowstorm, and several properties that have had to be reassessed. Okay. We're going to committee reports. 1, 2, 4. The fireman?
Last month, for February, we ran 29 emergency medical alarms, 8 MVAs, 3 fires, 1 mutual aid to another department, 4 service calls, for a total of 45 alarms. Our new truck is in service. Anybody wants to see it, they can stop up anytime somebody's there. We'll put stuff in the paper, I talked to you about that. The town contract, the town paid at the dentist tonight. That's all I got.
Okay. Did you have a specific time that you wanted to do that with the truck?
No, I gotta get a hold of papers.
Okay,
I'll let you know.
there he is.
I'll talk to you.
The assessor?
All the renewal exemptions forms, vast majority of them have been submitted and have been processed in our office. Parcel review is about 3/4 completed, 2/3, 3/4 completed, and I was going to provide you with sheets, but I will send it in the mailbox sometime over the next couple, 3 weeks if you're in regards to percentages that I want to get into is why we're doing what we're doing. And I guess I've indicated that all the way along. Okay. And photos will again be started up once the snow is complete.
Building inspector?
For the month of February, we had no building permits issued, hence the snow. We did 15 building code inspections, 2 zoning inspections. There was 1 violation written. We had 7 certificates of occupancy and 7 certificates of compliance for the month. That's it.
Dog control.
Plan the dog control report for February. 36 calls received, 12 dogs housed, 2 dogs at the kennel at this meeting, 2 dogs adopted, 8 dogs euthanized, 4 dogs reported lost. Picked up 2 dead dogs. 150 total mileage traveled this month, 20 appearance tickets issued, and that's by Edward Smith, dog control officer.
Okay. Highway?
Expenses for February 2004. Supplies and maintenance, $23,519.80. Payroll, $27,503.34. For a total of $51,023.14. The reimbursed by the county for plowing roads, $14,858.82. The payroll hours are as follows: 824 hours on machinery repair, 656 hours in plowing and sanding, 6 hours in drainage and culvert work, for a total of 1,486 hours. For the month of February, we used 200 gallons of gas, 2,103 gallons of diesel fuel.
Historian?
This past month, I have been occupied with more genealogy research of the Hubbard, Carrier, Voorhees, and Nipper families. Also in preparation for a presentation for the Christian home school people, as well as the monthly Volney Forum. The homeschoolers will be meeting in this building on the 13th at 10, and the forum, as has been mentioned before, will be at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Also, I'm working on the best property or individual photo to be placed on a poster to be used in the Oswego County leadership program for each town. There'll be a photo on this poster of somebody or something important, and it'll be doled out around the county. That is my understanding. In addition, I'm adding my input to the local involvement in the New York State Canal Corridor, grant progress. Thank you.
Lanning?
Planning board held its monthly meeting on March 3rd at 7 o'clock. First on our agenda was a public hearing for Mr. Michael Detour. He submitted an application for a motor vehicle repair shop at 27 Pierce Drive, Fulton, New York. After careful consideration and review, Mr. Detour's application was approved during a regular meeting. I might add that everybody in the area submitted letters to the planning board and spoke in favor of Mike opening up the repair shop. I guess he's done quite a bit of work cleaning the area up. And our second item for review was single split, a mini subdivision for William and Irene Musical on a piece of property located at 2702 County Route 45, Fulton, New York. And after all the questions have been asked and answered and careful consideration review, the Musical's application was approved.
Recreation?
As stated previously, the border safety course will be Saturday, March 27th from 9 to 1:30, and Sunday, March 28th from 12 to 4:30. The participants have to attend both days for the certificate, and it's limited to 30 people. They have to be 10 years or older by March 27th of this year. This was advertised in the Valley News yesterday. It'll be this coming Saturday, next Wednesday, and the following Saturday. And the sign-up sheet is in the town hall lobby as usual.
Town clerk?
I have 17 certified copies for $186, 2 public hearings for $130, 2 bell-jar licenses for $20. Bingo proceeds was $25.81. There's 2 dog adoptions for $40. We had 124 dog licenses and 3 replacement tags for $567.05. We received from the county treasurers $1,181.53 back from the dog licenses we sold in 2003. I did 1 marriage license for $17.50, 1 home occupation for $20, 1 subdivision, and 1 zoning book for $20. And conservation gave the supervisor $112.22, and that took care of all of 2003. The total revenue was $1,560.53. We paid out $389.95. So the total, the town income was $1,170.58. We sent out 20 postcards and made 36 phone calls to delinquent dog owners. As respectfully submitted by me.
Zoning?
I didn't get one.
Zoning had nothing on their agenda this month.
Old business? New business? Any petitions tonight? Okay, we'll go into our resolutions.
Resolution 2004-54, approval of minutes. Move approval of regular meeting minutes of February 12, 2004, having been previously distributed to the board for their review without having read them aloud at this meeting.
I'll second it.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conley?
Yes.
Counselor Lockwood?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Yes.
The motion is carried 5-0.
Resolution 2004-55, transfer of funds. Move to authorize the supervisor to instruct the bookkeeper to transfer the following funds. From 229-561454 Park and Recreation Savings to A7110.4 Parks Contractual in the amount of $5,526.69.
I'll second.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conley?
Yes.
Counselor Lockwood?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Yes.
The motion is carried 5-0.
Resolution 2004-56, payment of vouchers. Move to authorize the supervisor to instruct the bookkeeper to pay the following vouchers. Vouchers 46 through 85 in the general fund in the amount of $88,606.63. Vouchers 28 through 48, highway fund in the amount of $23,519.80. Voucher number 3, Oswego Healthcare, in the amount of $70.64. Vouchers 2 through 4, Seneca Hills Sewer, in the amount of $10,254.97, as shown on abstracts number 3 for 2004. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conley?
Yes.
Counselor Lockwood?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Yes.
The motion is carried 5-0.
Barb, on this next resolution, was the recommended changes to the zoning ordinance, were they printed in the Valley News?
They were
Or was it?
in my office. I put in the Valley News that they could come, anybody could come to the office and get a
Okay,
copy of it.
just want to check.
And only one person did.
Okay, so we're all right. Resolution 2004-57, adopt zoning ordinance changes. Move to adopt the zoning ordinance changes and add them to the zoning ordinance book available in the town clerk's office. These changes will take effect upon the adoption of the resolution. And we're talking about the changes in the packet that was handed out tonight, correct?
And I also have some right here, so anybody wants to look at them, they can take them home, whatever they want to do.
I'll second it.
Did you want to bring up?
Well, the one you handed out tonight contains the
It
adjustments.
does not contain that.
I think it does. The one that we've got on our desk does.
Yeah, it does, but not the one that I put up here.
How would you like us to, what we're doing, the resolution we're passing, in reference to the change in the zoning ordinance, there was a minor change made to one specific section, and that's in reference to stables for horses for non-commercial purposes in an R1 zone. And it basically puts some added restrictions on that. But it should be noted that nobody is here tonight in regards to the changes in the zoning ordinance, so I guess it's not a big issue. So adopting the ordinance with the adjustments that has been submitted tonight.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conlon?
Yes.
Counselor Barton?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Yes.
The motion is carried 5-0.
Okay. Resolution 2004-58, adopt a zone change. Move to adopt a zone change R1 to industrial on property located on County Route 57, State Route 481, as requested by Mr. Scott Robinson.
I'd like to second that for discussion. Barb, do you have was submitted to you, or was it submitted by the planning board, the specific pieces of property that are requested in the zone change?
Tax number.
Do we have the tax number of the specific pieces of property?
I think I have a copy. Do we, Don, do you have a copy of that?
The other woman that works in your office verified the tax map number with me on the phone. Whether that actually got published, I don't know. But we did discuss that.
They'll be assigned a new tax number because they'll have to do a subdivision now to split the lots if it's approved, because there'll be two, one piece will be residential, the other will be industrial, so they'll still have to go through planning for a mini subdivision.
Okay, just to amend that, they are in two separate tax map parcels right now, all in one deed, taxed by two different parcels, with the one parcel assigned a number for the zone change. Or not for the zone change, or because of the zone change, but that's the parcel that we want to rezone.
That's the 3 acres?
Yeah, 3.4 acres.
But none of that property goes on Route 57. You
For
said
the
Route
zone
50
change?
For the zone change.
No.
So we should remove Route 57 off that. It'd be just the 481 that it's.
I guess what I'm questioning is, Don, maybe you can answer, are we really clear on the specific tax parcels that we're talking about here? Normally, like we were talking earlier, normally there'd be a little easel and you'd have a good map showing exactly what we're talking about. And Chip, when you recommended changing the zone, maybe you can check, because I got a little confused here, because I thought this property was abutting the industrially zoned property that Armstrong had.
Well, that was my understanding.
Right.
It was everybody's understanding. The only, in fact, the county can't explain why it's mapped the way it is.
Well, see, the problem that gets me is what the planning board recommended passage of. The information they had at the time is a little, and I sat in on that, is a little different than what I'm hearing tonight, and I'm just wondering, just for legal purposes, are we really clear on exactly what parcels we're talking about? You know, we should have it on record that these are the specific tax parcels we're talking about changing.
The county has assigned a tax parcel to this piece already, the 3.4 acre parcel. The county, that is a tax parcel. The 2 acre remaining is a tax parcel now. Even though the whole property is owned in one deed right now, they had it, Mr. Robertson, the Fern Development Corporation, already had it divided into 2 separate tax parcels. They're getting 2 tax bills for one parcel, basically, right now.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's been through the town and approved, which they would still have to investigate. The town still has to approve a separation or subdivision, so we'd have to check on that.
Right, well, the land has not been subdivided yet. It is just, they just decided to say, okay, I want to pay taxes on this part of the property and taxes on this part of the property.
I guess, are we clear on what tax parcel number? Is it one tax parcel number we're talking about?
2 tax parcel numbers.
One tax bill.
The one number is going to be, it's one tax number with a proposed change. The other tax number is staying as is. If you look at number 6 on that handout, that's the proposed change parcel. Number 6.01 would be the parcel that's staying residential in the proposal.
And, yeah, and,
Access out here.
Where's the other R1 that this adjoins?
well, the R1, that's,
Directly to the north, there's a pie that's cut off of this at the very top of the map. That's the piece that's in question. And then Armstrong owns that piece to the, we'll call it the top of the page north, because it pretty much is.
right.
There's a small parcel there that abuts. It's owned by Armstrong, and just north of that, there's a piece of industrial property. And that's, originally it was thought that it was that piece that was industrial also.
Yes, yeah, I mean, there's no explanation as to why Armstrong-owned property is still zoned residential, when all of the rest of their property is industrial.
So the property immediately to the north
Of this property is owned by Armstrong.
and is zoned residential.
According to your maps that the county produced, but the county could not offer an explanation as to why they mapped it that way. There is additional land to the north that's also owned by Armstrong that is zoned industrial. Why it wasn't all made industrial, the county threw it back in the town's court saying, well, we did it per their intent. And it's going to be one of these flip-floppy things forever, I think.
Chip?
It was our understanding that the border is industrial property, maybe they said Armstrong, the planning board took it as the name being industrial. That was our understanding of the border of the property.
Can you take a look, Chip, just take a quick look, you may have to help him out, Don, he ain't moving too good tonight. And see if that parcel is the parcel that you guys were looking at.
Parcel 6, Chip, is the...
Does that look like, and was it a single parcel that we were talking about, or were we talking this whole property that included 6.01 as part of the zone change?
No, I think it was just 6, and then they're going to have a right-of-way through 601.
No, right away up top.
Or is it right away up top?
All right.
Yes. 6 is the parcel that we were applying for the zone change in. 6.01 is the remaining land that is going to be residential with a 60-foot right-of-way through 6.01 to get to parcel 6.
I think the top one goes through the...
If you look at 1.111, just south of that is where they're proposing to put the right-of-way on parcel 6.01.
And more or less that was done to provide a graphical aid to say a right-of-way is going to be going through 57 to the new industrial property. That is subject to change per planning board, whatever, to say, no, we don't want the right-of-way here because of site distances, things that haven't been determined yet. But the intent is to put a 60-foot right-of-way across the residential property into the industrial property. It won't change the area of the residential property at all, no matter where it is, but that is the most efficient place to put it right there. Where I have it mapped that, geez, everybody has to have it mapped like that.
Do we need to eliminate Route 57? Yes.
Jenny Conley, I have a couple of questions. One, that parcel that you talked about that's north of the property that's already zoned industrial, where does the railroad come in there? Would that have anything to do with it?
It goes alongside of it.
If you see,
That kind of makes sense. Why?
this is Route 57.
Right.
This is the railroad, right here. This property already adjoins the railroad. And everything between 481 and the railroad is owned by Armstrong.
I'm talking about the property that's supposed to be north of it is zoned industrial?
Well, the way it's mapped, there would be another 300-400 feet north of this.
That's why I'm wondering if the railroad is, joining that part there, maybe that has something to do with it.
Well, I don't think railroads are assigned to zoning, are they, at all?
But I mean, if they're working, if that was, they knew they would have to work. So anyway, my second question is, do they have to go right to an industrial zoning? Can't they, if there's more restrictions on business, couldn't they go for a business thing rather than?
Well, to answer that, we thought of doing that, but that would have created more of a spot zoning situation, because there is no other business zoning right there. Where there is industrial across the road, industrial to the north, that's That's why we opted for that. As opposed to also keeping it residential and going for a variance, which we knew would not be granted because it would be creating our own hardship.
David, can you give us a specific tax? Well, what would be the proper reading of the tax ID number for that parcel?
That should be it.
What would you say, 3.55A or something like that? Or that's the acre?
I got these in now on the slip.
What's the tax
That should be
ID
the
number?
acreage. Yeah, if you're looking at the acreage,
No,
the
the
6
tax
inches of
number.
one, I guess what you want now.
Now, what would be the specific tax ID number identifying that parcel?
Well, 6 and 601 right now, but the whole, is, 219, let's see, 219-01-1-6.
219-01-1-0-6.
Yeah, I'm pulling that off because that 219 itself is broken into 5 different small sub-maps, and I believe that's 21909. I could back in my system and check it, so I can give you the exact number, but I
George,
thought these were for reference.
I think the resolution should have the specific tax number in it.
I know what you're gonna do, right?
So maybe we should wait a minute and have David just get, I think the resolution should have it, because this is confusing to me. And to get this right, I think we should have the specific tax number for that parcel so that we know what what's getting changed, because it's surrounded by parcels. Yeah, so we don't.
Yeah, I have to be clear on that.
Plus, to be honest with you, I think it was a little confusing if the planning board's okay with it, but I know the understanding in the past was that the property immediately to the north was also zoned industrial, so that is a little change there, that the property to the north is residential. Ideally, they probably should have contacted the owner of that parcel.
Pardon me? Well, the way it's mapped. I'm gonna be here. I know. County previous number. About the reverse situation.
Previous number was 3 houses, okay, now these are the 2 new numbers.
We use 219-09-01-06.
And then, right, this is, it's divided into those, and it should correspond with your.
We only have to vote on this one. 06.
So, George, you want to rephrase it first, you probably should take that
219.
County Route 57 out of there. And it's parcel 219-09.
.09.
.09-01-6.
I'll be under 219. 219.
Hey, George, you ready?
219.
.09-01-06.000.
That's the parcel.
That is the parcel.
Still confused on the northern part here. That it's not in contiguous with a industrial, it's in.
The way it's mapped is, it is not contiguous the way it is mapped. Nobody has been able to offer an explanation as to why Armstrong property is zoned residential.
Where did it come from that it is industrial?
Well, it's looking at the maps at close glance, the 1 inch equals 2,000 feet maps, without property lines shown, you would assume it was because Armstrong owns it. As it turns out, scaling off maps off of roads, and they're based on tax maps, USGS maps, which really don't have anything to do with property lines. The zoning map shows industrial zoning to the north of this parcel, not contiguous though. And it's, at the scale of the maps, it could be a couple of pen widths.
Chip, this not being contiguous with another industrial, this isn't spot zoning?
Butts it to the west though, with
It
the,
butts to the west.
On the, across 81?
yeah.
Across 41,
Across
it is
41?
industrial.
Okay, so it still is, it
The
still
board
is.
is, like I said, and I believe the understanding the planning board had was the board shows Armstrong. I believe the understanding was that the board industrial property as well.
And your entrance is gonna be through the 2 acres, right, the residential?
Right.
So it kind of depends on where you put your entrance as to where, if you're ever gonna have that as in housing.
Well, it will still mean, you're right. The right-of-way could affect a house, septic system, stuff like that. I'm sure that whoever ends up owning the residential part is going to take that into consideration. It would be a case of shooting himself in the foot if he had 2 acres and had the possibility of putting in 2 houses and creating a situation where he could only put in 1.
You just raised a question here, and I mean, this is going to end up being one of our longer town board meetings, but you're saying that 6.01 is going to be sold off.
6.01 is going to be, at least the way I believe it is, the entire property is being
If he sells
sold.
off 6.01, how's he going to have access?
So right away.
He would have to have a deeded right away.
Yes, that would be a covenant in the deed, accepting a 60 use of, for ingress and egress of a 60-foot wide strip of land.
Okay, then one of the questions is, you've got something like 300 feet of frontage on County Route 57.
Right.
So where that deeded right-of-way would be located could alleviate some of these traffic issues they're talking about.
Well, it
For
depends
example-
on how it's written in the deed.
Right, if it split the property in half and you had
how.
housing lots on either side possibly,
Sure.
versus bordering it up
Right.
against, let's say, these people's property.
Absolutely. And it would, the biggest factor would be, once it goes to planning with the, number one, the site plan review and hopefully the subdivision review at the same time, part of that package would be a site distance analysis of that whole.
I got a question. Code enforcement officer, what is the rules in the law regarding a person deliberately selling off a portion of their property, which means that they then no longer have frontage on a roadway, when our bulk area requirements require a certain degree of frontage on a roadway?
It has frontage on a roadway.
It won't if he sells it off.
Sells what off?
It doesn't have, it has that on 481, that's it.
It
Oh,
fronts
wait,
on
481 is not a,
I'm just
not
saying that-
accessible roadway. He's
The
he'd be
piece doesn't
deliberately
have any
landlocking
frontage
his
now.
property. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't
You
make
know
it
what I'm saying?
less.
I know our bulk area requirements require a certain amount of frontage on a roadway, and if a person is deliberately selling off all the frontage, I guess the deeded right-of-way, you got a point there, but.
You can go to an area variance, if you have bulk and area, and you don't have, you can put in an egress, hence a lot of private roads in the town, really a lot, we have a few. You have a 60-foot right-of-way, you go down that, and then in those areas, they break off into larger areas. So that would require an area variance to allow, there's enough acreage to hold it, so that would be the argument to allow them to come in on a right-of-way to use that space. So to answer your question, area variance would be required if you do not have the road distant.
It says width at road, 200 feet. Industrial zone, bulk and area requirements, width at road, 200 feet.
Yes.
How are they gonna zone the road frontage as residence when it's gonna be used as industrial?
It wouldn't be. It's, the only thing
It
that's
would
being
be
used would be the right of
residential,
way.
so how would they get back in there?
The only thing that would be used would be the right of way.
The driveway.
Yeah, they're gonna deed it one driveway in.
And so that would have to be zoned
No.
industrial.
No.
Basically,
Deed it over.
basically, whoever owns the residential lot owns the right-of-way, but they can't prevent people from using the right-of-way to access
Right.
the property behind it.
Okay, that's good.
I have no further questions.
But whatever we do tonight, it still has to go back to the planning board
And zoning.
Thank you.
and zoning, right?
Yes.
All right.
What you do tonight will be, it'll be permanent for that zone.
Right.
How they address getting to and from and all that,
Right,
will go back
all
to
that
those
types of things will
boards.
have to go back to the board.
Yes.
Right, both boards, okay.
I just want to, just so you guys know, I'm not in a position to support this zone change at this time. I think there's some questions that need to be resolved. I would suggest that we can either, just as a suggestion, hold off voting on this maybe to our next meeting and request that maybe the representative appear before the planning board next month to at least, first of all, give the planning board an opportunity to reconsider their decision, being that the information they had was not accurate. And two, I do think the town, our code enforcement officer should have a little time to look at these plans, just to make sure that we're not putting something together here that could be a real problem in the future. And I do question this idea of having an industrial zone. He has two parcels. He wants to rezone one of the parcels and then have residential in the front, but in essence, what he's going to be doing is landlocking an industrial parcel with a private drive going through a residential parcel. So let's say, I guess that wouldn't be a major problem if it is going to be a storage warehouse, but if it's not going to be a storage warehouse, in essence, what you're going to have is you have industrial property that has to go through residential property. You know what I mean? And it's just questions here. It's
Well,
questions here.
just to bring up a point of contention here, the only reason that you would consider it landlocked is assuming that they wouldn't have access off of 481.
You made that clear in previous meetings.
Well,
that I attended, that
without the permitting process, the 5, 10, 12-year permitting process it may take, I mean, legally, they have frontage on 481. Being able to put a driveway onto frontage does not mean they have frontage or not have frontage.
Correct. I didn't say that either.
That's why they're zoned industrial.
I mean, you front on public property, a road. Whether that public entity allows you to put a driveway on, if they say, no, you can't put a driveway on, that doesn't mean you don't have frontage.
For all intents and purposes, if you don't have the opportunity to access a roadway, I question, what you're saying is correct to some extent, but the idea of frontage, there's a reason why you're talking frontage. I'm just saying, I think there's some information that came out tonight that kind of is a little different than what I understood, and I sat in on at least 2 of your meetings personally. I personally sat in when you went before the ZBA and when you went before the planning board. And I think as a town board, it is important we have a clear understanding of what it is we're voting on. And I'm a little confused tonight. I'm more confused
But
now than I
believe me,
was
it was not my intent to mislead anybody. In
I
fact,
understand.
Don and I had talked about this, well, in your office at one time when we discussed it. We realized at one point, in fact, at the last planning board meeting, we discussed the fact that the way the zoning map shows it shows the industrial zoning coming straight off of, what is it, Calkins Road? Straight across. There are houses in that area all the way over, including the tracks and a very small portion between the tracks and 481. I also brought up that I was in contact with the county, I brought up at the meeting, why did the county map that as zoned that way? And I brought it up at the planning board meeting, that they told me they have no idea why the town wanted it zoned there. And they had no evidence as to the fact that all they knew was that the town wanted some industrial zoning there. Now, the way it's mapped, it definitely doesn't, it includes more than the Armstrong property. And when I first started this process, I would have assumed that the way the Armstrong property is actually shaped and the shape of that zoning map, industrial zoning, that it was intended for Armstrong to be zoned industrial.
Well, it can be a confusing process, and that's
Yes,
maybe
it
the
can.
town back then, when it rezoned that property, didn't have really accurate information to work from. And
Well,
that's why I'm saying that
actually,
maybe-
right now, the best I can say is, when I started the process, I probably went out of my way to assume that that Armstrong property was officially zoned industrial. However, no one, other than the map, no one can say that it isn't zoned industrial.
You're right, and I mean, I looked at the map too, and when we were there, and I would have presumed the same thing. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's good that we know it's not the case. But I think, again, it's incumbent on us to really do our homework and know what we're talking about. I would suggest that possibly one of the principals might want to come to a meeting and themselves speak and let us know. That might help too. But just with respect to the other board members, I would think that possibly waiting tonight and giving possibly the opportunity for the planning board to take another look at this based on the information they have now might be the best tack, because I question whether the planning board would have come to the same decision if they had had the information then that we have now. Maybe they would have, but I don't know for sure.
Kevin, if we do hold off on this and vote it down tonight, does that mean we have to have another hearing and all that?
No,
Paper
we can close the public hearing, which we did. We have 60 days, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 60 days to make a decision. Usually, I think we have 60 days to make a decision. We don't have to make a decision tonight. We would probably have to make a decision at our next meeting.
Before you would just close down this tonight, it would seem like that parcel, the best use for that parcel is industrial. And I think you're mixing and matching what you're saying, because any issue you might have with misunderstanding from the other parcel is going to be dealt with in the planning board. So they're going to deal with your issue. We're just talking about the industrial parcel, I believe, here, and you should vote towards that tonight. It doesn't matter if it's residential where Armstrong owns, they're not going to put residential housing in. It really should all be industrial there. That whole area should be industrial.
Right.
And it should be.
Normally, when you pursue a zone change, if the planning board has, really good information, they might have suggested that, gee, we should approach Armstrong and let's get all this property, and that's how you avoid this spot zoning concept, which is a subjective.
But it's not spot zoning because you already have industrial and the other adjacent to this parcel, so really Armstrong should move forward. You should approach Armstrong in the future here and have them industrial too.
Are you one of the principals on the property?
No, I'm just neutral
Okay.
observer.
Once the right of way is given, it's just like a road. And you can drive through any zone to get to another zone, so I think that is the way I would look at that issue personally. You give a right of way, it's a right of way to get to another place. And that doesn't mean you have to keep each place the same zones. So, when they're looking at that, would be an automatic in my eyes. You're giving egress, you're giving a roadway to somebody to use. They're going to have to give one to get that parcel. If it stayed residential, they'd have to also give them it to become a house lot. It's be different traffic, but.
That's if it becomes residential.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
See?
So either way, the right of way would have to be given. That lot currently is landlocked, except for 481. So it does have frontage on 481, but then again, the state issue of getting to it.
I think you guys are right up there. You should go ahead and wait, go through your files, go through again. Bring that guy that owns the property in here, show us what he's got and what he wants to do. You know, like a presentation of something. What do you want to build? What do you want to do? Show me. I mean, isn't that common sense? Am I wrong?
We're prepared to do that.
Well, good. Next meeting, show us. You prove it to us.
You be willing to do that at the next meeting?
I could do it right now.
No, we ain't gonna hang around here all night. Because all you're doing is stalling this thing, you know.
Me?
You're stalling this.
Believe me, it doesn't behoove me at all to stall this thing.
No, that's true. I think that we either need to
They both own the, he owns the
Vote
house
on
and the
this
lot,
or
right?
table it till the next meeting, one or the other.
I think right now you got a resolution on the floor.
There's a motion on it and
Adopt
seconded already, so.
Right. So we need to deal with it, right? Barb, we have a
Yeah, you
motion
need
on the
to
floor.
vote one way or the other.
We can just amend that to that number so that we know
I
which
was
one.
the- Yeah, you can change any of these resolutions
Yeah.
the way you want
Yeah, we can amend it to that number, that
until they're
219.
passed.
But then the public
So
be
I
here when it's passed.
I
You're
put
gonna
the
be here
tax-
right now for the vote.
You're gonna vote it now.
I
And
put
all of a
the-
sudden you
I put the tax map number on there,
didn't vote it.
okay, and I took off County Route 57. So now it reads, move to adopt a zone change from R1 to industrial on tax map number 219-019-01-6.000. It's a property located on State Route 481, as requested by Mr. Scott Rogers. You can vote it down tonight, and then you got 60 days to go ahead and make a decision.
Look it
So
over,
we can
right.
put it on next time, we can change it whatever way you want to do it, it's
I
fine.
think that if you vote it down, though,
Can't vote it down, you have to table.
you would have to table it. You would have to, if you wanted to table it, you'd have to withdraw,
You don't have to table it, you can just vote it
not
down.
vote on it at all.
Not vote on it.
But if you vote it down,
If you don't vote on it, then you're tabling it.
right,
If you're going to vote on it, you can vote it down and then bring it up again. Whichever way you want to do it. Do you want to table it? Or do you want to vote it down?
or vote it up.
You can go either way.
Did you withdraw the
What's your
motion?
pleasure?
Can you withdraw the motion on it and have it, then you can bring it up next month?
Same thing. You can vote it down, bring it up next month. Table it and bring it up next month.
Personally, I listened to this, and I think there is some confusion over this, but I've seen the drawings. I mean, he has drawings with him of their proposal, and it's impressive of what the building, what they're looking at doing. I'm looking at this residential, it's landlocked, you can't get there to what this mistake is. I don't see where this is a big hindrance of what the intent is of what they want to do here. The roadway, I don't see where there's a problem with this roadway. I appreciate the people coming in, and like I said, I think if we did pass this to industrial, then it goes to the zoning and planning, we have a say over what they can do. We have a say what they can build, we have a say buffer zones, noise control, traffic control, things like this that we can do. I think putting it off 30 days, 60 days, or whatever, I think we might better just vote for it and move forward. That's my opinion.
You're for it.
Huh?
You're the man for it, right?
Well, I'm not, that's not necessarily for it. I've listened to what the arguments are and stuff, and I'm just saying, that I don't think putting it off 30 days or 60 days or whatever.
Why
If
not?
we vote no, then vote no, or vote yes, and one way or the other. Let's get it over with. That's all.
But if you do defeat this, what I'm saying is, if it's defeated, do we have to go through the whole process again?
Yes.
once it's dead, you have to refile every bit of paperwork that you already did to do it again. That's my understanding of the law. It's voted.
Probably you have to do the public hearing level.
Right, correct. We have to go through the whole process that we just did. We go back to planning board,
If you
fill out a packet.
If you table it, you don't.
And tabling it is either not voting or withdrawing a motion.
Well, you can just say, yeah, you just say you want to table, somebody can make a motion to table it. Want to do that? You want to vote on
Well,
it?
you already got a motion. You can't do two motions at a time. You have to vote on one motion.
You can make a motion to table the motion.
You need to get your second to withdraw his motion, and then it won't be seconded. And then dip.
I think once again, you're just kind of, the issue is that industrial, it's industrial, and you still have restrictions on what the person does with that other parcel. So why would you ever vote it down when it really should be an industrial parcel there? So don't look at it that way. I understand your confusion on that parcel, but you still have to go through the whole planning process. So it's not like you're just going to put anything up there.
Yeah, it still has to go back through both
Absolutely.
boards.
You're restricting no matter what they do.
I gotta go make a phone call.
Well, why don't we do this? George, why don't you withdraw the motion right now? I'll second the withdrawal. We'll move on to the other motions, get them taken care of, and then we can go back to this in about 10 minutes. How's that sound?
I don't know how you guys do it in the fire department, we follow Robert's Rule of Order. The way we do it, it's whoever makes the motion can rescind their motion,
Right.
or whoever second it can rescind it, and it's disposed of.
That's why I say he can withdraw.
That's the way we do it.
All right, I'll withdraw my second.
And now there's no, the motion is a second, so it's no good.
Now it has to be seconded, or we're not gonna be able to do anything with it.
Unless somebody else wants to
Now give me
second.
another 10 minutes.
That's right. Somebody else wants to second?
All right, so we'll move on at this point.
Withdrawn.
Resolution 2004-59, accept application for junkyard permit. Move to accept the application from Murtaugh from Crosby Hill Auto Recycling, located on Flood Drive, for a junkyard license for the year 2004. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conlon?
Yes.
Counselor Rockland?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
All his licenses and everything, all his
He's
payments
fine.
all caught up, everything.
Yeah.
As always.
Aye.
Motion is carried 5-0.
I didn't get the vote.
I gave you a check.
I
You're on
voted
the
for it.
phone.
Where's the check?
I gave you-
Check mark.
Okay, Dennis, now you can go.
Resolution 2004-60, change banking institutions. Move to change the Town of Volney banking institution to Fleet Bank.
I'll second it.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conley?
Yes.
Counselor Rockland?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Rockland?
Yes.
The motion is carried 5-0. Greg, did I give you the last one?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's in mine with a name next to it there?
Take your time. Somebody else is going after my granddaughter.
Okay. I'm giving Kevin time to think. Resolution 2004-61, accept annual report for 2003. Move to accept the annual report for the year 2003, having been electronically sent to the comptroller and a notice was published in the paper stating that a copy is on file in the town clerk's office for public review. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Counselor Hartranft?
Yes.
Counselor Conlon?
Yes.
Counselor Rockland?
Yes.
Counselor Sprague?
Yes.
Supervisor Rockland?
Yes.
Motion is carried 5-0.
go into public comments. None? Someone want to make a motion that we adjourn?
Do this resolution again, go back to it.
You want to make it?
No, he's talking.
If they want to make a motion to table it, they can. Because the other motion that they already made is done, because it wasn't seconded.
Right, we would have to make the motion again now.
You couldn't make a motion to table it while you already had the other motion on the
That's
floor.
right.
So he withdrew his second.
But he withdrew the second, so.
Right, so now there's no...
So we're gonna go back through.
Right now, there's not. He's gonna do something down here.
So George, you wanna do that again?
Okay. Here we go. But you had already rewritten it with a new number, right? You wanna read the motion?
No.
Is that what you want? Is that what you want to talk
Yeah.
about? Okay.
Okay, this is, move to adopt the zone change from R1 to industrial on tax map number 219-.0.01-6.000 on property located on State Route 481 as requested by Mr. Scott Robertson. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move that.
You move. Okay.
I'll second it.
And you'll second. For discussion, you know?
For discussion.
Any discussion down there, Kevin?
Chip, you've seen this. This is essentially what...
Okay, now the motion is on the board. Now we gotta do something with it.
Right.
You can either table it
Let's vote.
or... whatever you want to do.
Call for a vote. Vote.
Oh, you're gonna go for a vote?
Vote.
The way I read the motion, you don't want to change
Yes.
anything? All righty. Counselor Hardaway?
Yes, and I'd like to say that, as I stated before, it's a piece of property we're not getting any use out of. They're gonna come in, we've seen the plans. If they follow, hopefully they're people of their word, that they're gonna do something with it, and it looks like it's gonna be a decent property, and follow the rules, planning with zoning, will support us with it. And we're gonna get some taxable property in there, maybe a couple jobs out of it. They'll respect the neighbors, and I'm in favor of it, yes.
Okay. Counselor Conley?
I'll vote yes. I'm going to watch this real close, so we'll be sitting in at the meetings.
Counselor Lockwood?
Yes.
Counselor Sproul?
Yes.
Supervisor Locke?
Yes.
You need this copy, Jen?
5
John, you need this copy, or? Oh. You want to hold on to it? Did you go to public comment? There was no public
We already
comment?
did that, nobody had anything. Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
You're not going to do public comment?
I did it before.
Couldn't Carl speak a little bit?
Oh, yeah, how about Carl?
Carl,
Carl?
did you have anything you want to mention? Or?
Carl, would
Did you have fun tonight, Carl?
The legislators voted down the sales tax increase today, so that one didn't go through. Thanks, Charles.
Our meeting was almost as long as yours. What about property tax? Our meeting was almost as long as yours.
Not quite. I started at 10 o'clock this morning, and I still haven't been home, so.
What about the smoking? Wasn't there something on smoking too?
Well, we had coffee, we had meetings before the legislative meeting, so I started out at 10 o'clock on the meeting, so I've been there all day.
Since they voted down. What is smoking? Smoking, say anything about it?
They sent a resolution to the state to ask them to change the rules for single home bars.
Since they voted down the property tax, so they can increase the sale, since they voted down the sales tax, so they
They voted
increase
down the
the
sales
property
tax.
tax?
Pardon?
Are they gonna increase the property tax now?
Well,
they're gonna have to look at the budget and see where they go from there. They're gonna have to make cuts.
What was the vote?
12 in favor, 11 against, 1 absent, and 1 abstaining.
Dennis, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
I thought it was
third.
withdrawal. Withdrawn.
Aye. All in favor? Aye.
Hey, Billy.